Someone has knocked on our door this evening and stepped across the threshold as one of our house guests. She is now crossing over from the normal world into our haunted house. Welcome to the Looks Creepy Cool podcast, part of Haunted House FearFest. I'm your host, Renee, and tonight I'm joined by Allyson Morgan, writer and director of The Ghost, which is nominated for Best Paranormal Horror Short at Haunted House FearFest that starts on October 6th. Together, we'll wander room by room through the haunted house and uncover what makes her film so creepy cool. Let's step inside. Hi, Allyson. How are you this evening?
Hi, Renee. What a spooky intro. I'm already scared. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, I'm so great. I wanted to do something different with podcasts. We're all busy, and I just, this is starting out. So I hope people enjoy it. But welcome to the podcast. I'm super excited. So, guys, just so you know, you get familiar with it, we're going to go from room to room to talk up to Allyson about her film and about herself. We're going to start out in the creepy kitchen where she'll share a secret ingredient of fear about her film and about her, the Library of Shadows, where we discuss what inspired Allyson, the Mirror Room, which will reflect on her horror origin story, the Basement Brief, which will reveal industry secrets or lessons that she can share with us, the Attic Call, which will talk about what's pulling her forward, and the final room is where every house guest shares what's the creepiest thing that's happened to you and what's the coolest thing that's happened to you, and how the interview goes and how the festival watches us during this call. We might not make every room, but it really depends upon the fear of the house. So, Allyson, before I kick things off, and it is the beginning of October, so before I started this interview, I got all prepped, even when I go to my day job for work. So I watched some of Friday the 13th on Miramax. I watched some episodes of The Twilight Zone this morning. I get up pretty early. So how are you kicking off this October for Halloween season?
Oh my gosh. Well, the candy displays are already out at the pharmacy. So for me, I'm really stalking those peanut butter pumpkins, the
Oh
Reese's.
my God, the Reese's.
And I'm based in New York, which I'm originally from Ohio, and I grew up, trick or treating in like neighborhoods where you go door to door and it's a big community event. The community element of New York trick or treating is so interesting to me because the kids here go to like storefronts and they trick or treat in these big apartment buildings, and it actually creates like a fun little community in such a big city environment. So I'm actually really excited to do that coming up in a few weeks.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I wish they had that in my building or the building I lived before that. So you live like in a great building, which is nice because some buildings there are not be like, get away. I'm not celebrating October getting
Well,
candy.
to be fair, they ask us to put little cards on our doors if
Got
we're
it.
open for trick or treating, and there have been
Yeah.
years past where I've been doing a show or I've been out of town and I've just left a bowl of candy out and it has been decimated
God,
by the time I get home.
oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's amazing. So, guys, we're going to delve into next on our stop. Now that we introduced Allyson, we're going to delve into the creepy kitchen. And first off, with the ghost. Um, and it is in a nominee for Haunted House Fear Fest, and it's in the Mirror Room Horror Short Bundle. So make sure you check it out. But basically, the ghost is a woman is ghosted by the man she's dating, and then the haunting begins. So, of course, we've all ladies have experienced that, or gentlemen. So, Allyson, how did it come about? Any experiences, personal experiences that you can share, and just tell us more about the level of fear that you put into this film.
Yeah, there were two things going on. First was I got ghosted. So to your very intuitive point, this person that I really cared about and thought I was on the same page with just disappeared. And to be honest, I was having a really hard time understanding it, trying to make sense of it. I felt like I was going through text messages and trying to find something that wasn't there, or like trying to see something, make meaning out of something that like didn't necessarily have meaning. And I had written a feature film for Hulu called Jagged Mind that came out in 2023. And in a lot of ways, that experience was really great. And I didn't get to direct it, so a lot of changes were made, which is very common in the feature film world, and especially working with a studio system. And so a lot of friends of mine said, like, what you're experiencing is very common, but if you want to really tell your story, you have to direct. So I was already thinking about directing. I wanted to do something that felt, frankly, like pretty simple. And because I'm a poor artist, something that was like monetarily achievable. And then this ghosting happened to me, and I always like in my writing and my storytelling to take the heart of an idea, to take a real story, but then see how we can heighten it in the film world. I already was thinking about the idea of a woman being ghosted and then being haunted by that ghost, and it seemed like the perfect project for me to write and direct and really feel personal about it, to feel like it was really my story.
This is crazy. So, can you share with us, like, what happened with the guy? Did you ever find out why he, like, first off, why do men or women, why do they do that? Like, just be honest. Just say, hey, it's not working out. Like, did you ever find out why he did it or what happened?
I mean, my immediate reaction is, who cares? Like,
Yeah.
honestly, it doesn't matter because
Hmm.
the impact was the same regardless of the intent. If I had to make a guess, and I think this is in the film as well, I think some people, maybe not men specifically, but frequently men, get scared by big emotions. If you want to talk about fright, I think that like he expressed an emotion and then got very nervous and scared by this thing that he said out loud and then couldn't deal with it. And instead of having a conversation, he just chose to not have a conversation at all, regardless of how that might make me feel. So again, I try to pepper that into the film. Obviously, the film is only about 10 minutes long, so we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
But I think like a shade of it, a color of it is in there.
Yeah. No, that's wow. Well, I watched the film, me and screening panel did, and I was just like, I liked how you transition everything seamlessly from beginning to end. Like at first you think it's just this picture perfect relationship, and then it delves a little bit into, I wouldn't say creepier side, but a little start little subtle ways of creepiness like goes through the film. And then I'm not going to say the ending, obviously you guys have to watch it, but it was well done. And I wanted to know, like, in terms of, from who's like the bite sized Halloween to indie festival runs, what ingredients felt essential to make this like a horror bite sized film that was so satisfying?
I mean, I will say I was very intentional about having a lot of women as heads of department on set. My DP is a woman, my producer is a woman, our sound mixer is a woman, our production designer is a woman. I feel like a lot of traditional horror is often shot through a male gaze, through a male lens. I even have like dear filmmaker friends to me who are men who read this script and said, I don't understand why he says he likes her and then he's the one that disappears. It should be her saying it to him.
Really?
And a lot of women that I repeat that story to are like, "Oh, they just don't get it." Like,
Yeah.
in fact, that is a thing that happened to me and happened to a lot of women that I know, and so it was really important to me to have a like, very specific female lens on it, and also because it was my first time directing, I wanted to feel supported. I wanted to be able to ask questions. I wanted to never feel dumb or scared or, like, embarrassed to ask a question on set. And so I was very intentional with hiring a team who never made me feel that way. And so I think like trust is the main ingredient and communication on set to make the best film that you can.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends upon your team, basically your crew to get you through everything because I can imagine like yes, it's only 10 minutes, but I'm sure it was stressful at times too, right? Or did it just move seamlessly and everyone was on board and how was that like?
I was saying this in another Q&A that like
Mhm.
the more interesting story is like, oh, it was really upsetting, but actually, no,
Yeah.
it was pretty great. I mean,
Wow.
the stress comes in like I'm a perfectionist, I'm a type A monster, and so um, a lot of my stress was in the prep about really like making sure that we were as prepared as possible because again, it was my first time. I wanted to go to set with all of the tools that I needed to execute. And I started as an actor, so I knew how to talk to actors. And I've been a producer, so I knew how to lead a team and hire. And I'm a writer also, so like I knew how to describe things. The stuff I didn't know was lenses and lighting and all those terms that you just learn from experience or from going to film school. And so I was, yeah, a little stressed going in that again, like just not having that knowledge that I would feel out of my depth. But I prepared really hard with my producer and my DP to have a really tight shot list. Like I was saying, I felt like when things came up that I didn't know, I just asked. And my DP was really good about explaining in depth to me, like the difference between shots and terminology. And then always like making a movie is never easy, right? You never
Right.
have money or time or
Yeah.
resources, but I thought it was the best version of what this kind of film could be.
And that's interesting how you talked about like your early career, like you were an actor and then you were a producer and all that prepared you for this. How was it? I mean, I can like about like with me, like being on like the marketing and creative side and stuff, like when a lot of people don't understand that creative side, they get kind of like maybe taken aback or like, why are you doing this? Did you ever have anyone in your life that doubted you or how did you, if so, how did you push that by that fear or was it just it was fine and you just pursued and you had the support that you needed?
Yeah, I mean, I think misogyny is always running rampant in this industry and many industries. I've never had anyone explicitly say, you can't do that. I think that was maybe more common, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago. I think now it's implicit or like it's just more subtle. I didn't have anybody saying you can't do it, but I also didn't have a lot of figures saying like you should do it, other than frankly a lot of like female filmmakers that I talked to where I was really hesitant to do this for the first time. And it's almost a cliche, but like particularly women feel like they need permission where men sometimes just go and do.
Yeah. And they don't know what they're doing and they just do it.
And so I had a lot of, again, like female filmmaker friends really encourage me and say, like, you just have to do it. Like, you have all the skills, you know more than you think you do. And like, are you going to screw some stuff up? Probably, but like that's how you learn, and that's how I've always learned as like a theater producer and an event producer is like sometimes you also just have to fail and not be scared of that failure. I'll be the first to say, like, I'm really proud of The Ghost. I don't think it's a perfect film because it's my first film, so it shouldn't be perfect. But I learned a lot and it feels like mine. It feels like my story and the film I wanted to make. And so, if the question is ultimately like, how do you gain confidence? I don't know. I think you just have to get used to rejection, which I did as an actor for many, many years, as a single person going on a lot of dates. And I don't know where like perseverance comes from other than knowing what your goals are and just like
Yeah.
doing what you need to do to get there.
That's amazing because a lot of people need to hear that, particularly in the creative space and particularly now. So I transition room, guys. We're in the Library of Shadows where we're talking about Allison's origin story. And Allison, with that in mind, like with fear and how you push forward and getting advice from your colleagues and supporters, in terms of like the horror aspect of it, like what films or books did you read when you were younger that really delved you into this space?
Well, I'll give you my hot take, which is that I don't really love horror.
No! My goodness. The house is not gonna kick you out, don't worry.
I'll give you my longer explanation, which is like I touched on this earlier. I think, I as a young person growing up, like lots of us did, watched horror movies at sleepovers, and I would have nightmares for years about like really violent imagery, about cruelty, and particularly cruelty against women, often at the hands of men. And I just had a really hard time understanding why that was entertainment and why that was entertaining to people. And so I really like actively did not watch horror for a really long time. And then there was a combination of things that happened. One was like the Jordan Peele movement of psychological horror that was like about something. Not to say that movies prior to that didn't have a message or a story, but I found, tying ideas of like class and race to horror was really interesting to me. In 2019, I was at a film festival with another project and I met one of the executives from the 20th Digital team, which was the team that produced Bite Size Halloween for Hulu. And we sat down and had a meeting, and he asked me if I'd be interested in pitching ideas. And I said, probably not.
You said that?
Because at the time I was
Yeah.
writing pretty exclusively comedy, and we ended up spending the weekend together, got, like getting to know each other as people, had a really fun time, but like I didn't expect to hear from him again. And then in February of 2020, my manager called and said they want you to come in and pitch on this series. And I had to get real with myself that, like, it was a really good career opportunity, and was I going to pass it up just because I instinctually, like, wasn't quite there? And I spent some time just thinking about how could I find a way into this genre, and what would it be, and can I contribute to this genre in a way that feels responsible and feels interesting to me? Like, going back to 2020, I went into this pitch. I had 5 ideas, and the last one they really sat up in their chairs about, and was about going on a first date with somebody that's going really well. You're having a great time. You go home with them, and you see a photograph of yourself on the wall, and you don't know why it's there. And the idea was like, similar to the ghosting idea. What happens when you're falling for somebody and they turn out to be somebody you didn't expect?
That's scary.
Yeah. And so again, like, so my way in was relationship horror, and then with
Mhm.
that piece specifically that did end up getting produced, that then got turned into the feature, it's 2 females in the lead roles, which I just find more interesting personally. I don't see that kind of story as often. I felt like if we were going to have a victim and an abuser, why not at least put a different color on top of it? And so, like, since I've now entered into that genre, I have become more interested in that space. And, like, Mimi Cave with Fresh, I think, is doing something really interesting and similar that's like genre mashup-y. Ready or Not in that
Yep.
space is like more my vibe. I still get really scared by like hard horror. And this film
Yeah.
has very fortunately played at a few horror film festivals now. And I really have to like protect my spirit when I sit
My god.
and watch short blocks, because like there's some scary stuff out there, you guys. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of filmmakers making really like beautiful and terrifying stuff.
Yeah, I just maybe it's because I like an owner of a horror festival. Like I literally can watch horror films like right before I go to work. It gets me up in the morning. It's like everything's all right with the world. Like the world's like so much going on. I'm like, horror is like my calming space. And then I'm like, okay, I can conquer the world because things aren't so bad. That's how I look at it. Although with the Blair Witch Project, I remember seeing that when I was very, very young in the theater. I slept with the nightlight for 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah. That I mean, really, really good storytelling. It doesn't matter
Mhm.
what genre it's in, it'll stick with you. But I do find that, like, yeah, horror movies specifically. I also saw Blair Witch in the theater, and I'll never forget the end of that movie. Like, that
Yes.
movie still sits with me in like a really, again, like cool, interesting, creative way. Like, scared me a lot.
Yes. No, no, definitely. But that's good though, because we need to push past our fear. No, that's great. So next we're going to move into the mirror room. And this is where I always like to ask my guests, like, if you can go back and to your old self and just see like, where your journey has been, like, what would you say to yourself in the mirror? The bad stuff first, and then we'll start with the good stuff.
No, I mean, I'm just thinking through, the heart of the idea is keep going, but I have to say that to myself every day. I don't know that I need to I need to go back in time necessarily. I think when you choose a career in the arts as a freelancer, as a filmmaker, like any career that doesn't have a straight trajectory, I think the hardest part is believing that tomorrow there will be more opportunities, even like in the dark moments where it feels like, does anyone care? Am I making progress? And I think like continuing to make my own work has led to everything after. So again, like if I was going to go back in time, I would just give myself a pep talk about continuing to like write my own things, act in my own theater companies, work, just continue to make things.
But that's amazing though, especially now. And I feel like what you're saying, like, is just so touching in the sense that, like, it's so hard right now with like cost of living going up and everything else. And I feel like 10 years beforehand, it was a little bit easier, but not really because it's still difficult no matter what era that you're in. And it's just, hearing your story and everything else, it's like you're really like I said, like are pushing forward. But like, I guess like you were just making connections as you go. Like you keep on pushing forward. Like I would never imagine like going to a festival and meeting like the producer, where, hey, you want to pitch to us for like Hulu bite size horror? Like that's amazing. So if you can give other advice to other people, what would you tell them in terms of networking and getting out there? Because it is intimidating.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'll just repeat, like, you have to make your own work, period. even when it feels hard, even when it feels scary, like I can trace back, like the reason I had that opportunity at that festival is because I was there with a project that I wrote, like with a TV project. And I didn't know, obviously, when I wrote that, when I entered into that festival, that I would then meet that person. But then the flip side of that is like, I always tell younger filmmakers, you can't think of it as networking. I think networking has this connotation that feels a little like gross when really what it is just talking to people. You know, I travel, I've been traveling to film festivals with this film for about a year, and I have gone to 99% of them by myself. And you just have to get better at saying hi to like the other filmmakers in your group, to like approaching filmmakers whose work you see and like and telling them you like it, because often they are also there by themselves. And then you end up spending time together. And the producer of The Ghost is a wonderful producer. Her name's Tara Sheffer. She actually got an Oscar nomination for a film last year on Aline. We met, yeah, we met at this festival called Tallgrass in Kansas because we were both on a panel together. And before like either of us had even seen each other's work, we were just chatting as people and like figured out we both live in New York and figured out that we were both female producers and just became friends. And so when I was looking for somebody to produce The Ghost, she was the first person that I thought of and called. And so I always say like lateral networking is just as important as trying to meet those like industry people who are frankly like elusive and hard to meet anyway. But like meet other filmmakers, just talk to each other. Even when like I know that feels sometimes hard and scary too. I can also get really shy, but that's the reason why you go to festivals is to also meet other filmmakers.
Yeah. Oh, that's great advice. So, if I can ask you this, like, yes, The Ghost has been out, like you say, you've been touring with festivals for a year. So, what's really like pushing you forward?
Do you mean with The Ghost specifically or like
Or
what's
just
next?
in general? Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
well, I just refuse not to be successful. It's like
that's
deeply
great. Yes. Yes.
deeply in my soul. I've said before, like, I think I was always good at school. I always had good grades. And when you're a smart kid, nobody tells you to be an artist.
Yeah.
They tell you to like be a lawyer, be a doctor, like be a scientist. And I really do feel like you can treat the arts just like a regular career, maybe with more ups and downs and more like highs and lows, but you really have to look at it like a business and like a career. And I feel like there are milestones on my path that I've, had, but the goal for me is very clear. Like I want to get that Oscar. I want to like
Yes.
have a production company.
Yep.
I want to like hire other people and help other people. And so for me, again, I think like goal setting, visualizing, like knowing what you're fighting for helps you in the fight because
Yes.
otherwise you can get very lost in the like I mean frankly like there are depressing moments. There is sadness, there is like doubt. And the I think the only way to kind of fight through that is to be super clear on like what you want.
Yeah. So your why, basically. That's what pushes you forward. But that's, I mean, that's so amazing. And yes, don't stop. Like I told people, I don't care if I'm freaking 80, I will have this haunted house and it'll be even bigger and, figuring it out as I go, which is like really inspiring. So I want to talk to you about, I did some research on you and, I read that you've had residencies from France to Maine, even a haunted mill. Is that true? How have those residents shaped your creative spirit? Particularly the haunted mill.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
curious
yeah.
to know.
We can talk specifically about that one because it's part of the Wisaic project. It's their Halloween residency that they do. Because I have another ghost project.
Okay.
But the kind of larger answer is I think residencies are just wonderful for artists, especially again for me in New York. Like I do live alone, so you would think I could just sit down at the computer and work, but like in New York, you're just always distracted by a million things, including like work and friends and like wanting. I have such FOMO like all the time. I want to go out to see people and do things. And you have to literally remove yourself from that situation, I think, sometimes to actually get good work done. I like being inspired by different environments. I like being inspired by different people you wouldn't normally meet in your like day to day. And in all of those residencies I've done, the main residency is where I wrote The Ghost. I actually like wrote that project at that residency. I'm proud to say that I have completed projects at I think almost every single residency because
Wow.
I'm also very deadline driven.
Oh,
So
that's good.
if you tell me I have like 2 weeks or 3 weeks to get something done, I'll finish it as opposed to like I don't know, I'll do it sometime, I guess. The Wasaic Project is in upstate New York. It's a lot of visual artists, honestly, but they're very open to installation work, which is the haunted mill that they open up every Halloween for the local community. Artists come in and they take over rooms of the mill with a different art installation.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, and one of my creative partners, Kevin Lapson, and I created this AR experience called Ghosted, which is speed dating with ghosts. And so
Amazing.
the idea is you've died and gone to hell, but the good
Yeah.
news is you get to come back if you bring one annoying ghost with you for all of eternity. So you put on a headset and you look across from you, and like different actors who are playing the ghosts appear, and you can swipe left or right like a dating app.
God, sign me up. Next time you do that again, sign me up. We're in upstate New York. Like how far up?
It's in Wassaic, New
You
York,
say
which is, I want to say, it's like a couple hours away from the city.
okay, I have to
It's off
wake
of the train.
I have to make a weekend trip. That is amazing. So how many times did you do that? Was it just like one time you did this
I've
or
only I've only done
okay.
Wassaic once, although that AR project was also at the North Bend Film Festival out in,
Okay.
like, Seattle. We've traveled with it a couple times. It's on or was on the Magic Leap headset. Although now, like, we just developed it, I don't know, in the last 5 years, and the technology is already becoming a little out of date, so we
I
need
know.
to update it.
Well, honestly, like every year technology comes out of date. Like I had an iPhone 8 for like I have a 16 now, but I had an 8 for like I would say a year ago.
Yeah.
you
I've
know,
still got a 12, so
hey,
I refuse to pay
yeah.
for another phone, but it also dies every 30 minutes.
Yeah, but hey, as long as it still works, you have your charger handy. No, that's great. So in the attic, I always wonder, especially with like filmmakers and everything, is there a project that you have tucked away in your attic that you're kind of thinking about dusting off or, you want to bring back, or is there something, anything along those lines or
Bring back, but I'm like very actively right now working on this feature about an obituary writer who decides to fake her own death so that people have to be nice to her.
good. That's
So
great.
it's another like when you watch The Ghost, you'll see it's really, I think of it as a dark comedy with a ghost in it. This is also meant to be more of a dark comedy. And
Hmm.
again, I like to kind of play in that world of like weird things happening, but also it's a little funny because I think that that's life.
I
So
love it.
I'm trying to get rewrites done on this new feature, and then hopefully
Wow.
we'll see what happens. Hopefully try to get it made.
Yeah. So is it like a horror comedy or is it just strictly comedy?
I don't know that I would call it horror comedy other
Hmm.
than like it does have a lot of death, but mostly fake death. My first draft of it, I think like nobody died. I also have a murder mystery rom-com. And in the first
Nice.
draft of that, nobody died. And then somebody was like, if it's a murder mystery, people have to die.
Oh my god. Well, duh. Yeah.
Like I said, I'm sometimes a little resistant to actual violence, but then if you make it silly violence, I feel better about that.
Oh my gosh. It's wow. So you're just so creative. Like I never like the obituary one. Like it's just I wouldn't even think of that. And that's it. Like, is there anything like? Do you have any like special playlist music that you listen to get you in the mood? Or I listen to when I'm like in like have to get ready for a big meeting and stuff, or just like get in the zone. I still listen to the Game of Thrones soundtrack.
I love that.
I like, I have my playlist there on the certain ones. Is there anything that gets you into that mood to writing or
Yeah, I mean, I have a playlist on Spotify it's called Music to Write to, and for
okay.
the most part, it's like a lot of like female singer-songwriters, but it's like very or like Ray is on there. A lot of not a lot of lyrical stuff because honestly, if I start singing, then I can't write.
Right.
So I need something that's like very mellow. And then to your point, yeah, it depends on the project. I think I was working on Jagged Mind, the Hulu thing, like, I had a very different kind of playlist. So I have, like, a general writing playlist, and then depending on the project, I'll put something more specific together.
So no death metal or anything like that.
Not for me. I know
Okay.
it works for some people,
Yeah.
but I need something that feels very relaxing.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, we're about to enter our final room. And this is the question I always ask my guests. What is the creepiest thing that's ever happened to you? And what's the coolest thing that's ever happened to you?
Um, I've been thinking about this a lot, because I feel like living in New York, you get creeped out all the time. Um, but when I was in college, I did the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and friends and we were like, "Let's do one of those ghost tours. That seems like dumb and silly." And so we went on one of these like Edinburgh ghost tours, and they took us. The last stop on the tour was like very far underground in an old crypt. Um, and they like, told a scary story, whatever, but then they blew out all the lights. And so it was just standing in a cavernous room with strangers. And there was no reason for like wind to be blowing through the room because we were underground. But this like gust of wind blew up and blew over me. And I was like, all right, I'm out. There was no way it could have been fabricated. It just was like it was a weird experience that felt like the ghost was saying, "Okay, bitch, you don't believe in me."
That's creepy.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like, people have asked me with the ghost, like, "Do you believe in ghosts?" And the answer is like, "Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
do." And I try not to mess with them, disrespect them. Like, if I'm in a space that feels like it has a weird energy, I thank them and ask them to politely leave.
That's good. You don't want a poltergeist, Allyson.
No, I did a residency in Key West in
Mhm.
January, and I found out that Key West has more dead bodies than living people.
What? What do you how'd you find that out? What
Oh,
like,
it's
what?
it's very common knowledge in Key West,
What?
apparently. But there are a lot of haunted experiences in Key West. The doll that the Chucky movies were based on lives
Yeah.
in Key West. And so
No.
people have also had weird experiences with that doll. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that my room was haunted because I was
What?
also having like I was feeling watched at night. I was hearing noises. So I went and I like saged my room and I like got a crystal and I thanked the ghost and asked them to leave. And after that, I stopped having
Wow. Well,
weird.
that ghost was very cooperative because some of them aren't. So you're very lucky, Allison. You have juju on you and come prepared if God forbid something
Listen,
happens.
I think like in real life, you have to be kind to them and hopefully they will return that.
Yeah.
I am hopeful that I will not
Yeah.
anything more serious than that.
Wow. Well, I mean, I'm gonna ask you like you have to answer like what's the coolest thing that's happened to you, but I feel like that was really cool that you did that in terms of the sage and everything. But what's the coolest thing that's happened to you? So
Yeah, I was thinking about that today too. I mean, my Hulu movie got to premiere at the American Black Film Festival in Miami, and like being able
that's
to
amazing.
be in person at my first like feature premiere was really cool. And like one of my best friends, Roy Bergman, who also cast the ghost, came with me, and so like my friends were really supportive. It was just like a really special weekend. It was very cool.
That's amazing. Well, guys, Allison has made it through the house and we're so welcome to have her on here. And yeah, and guys, The Ghost is in the Mirror Room Horror Shorts bundle at Haunted House FearFest, which starts October 6th. And by the time you listen to this interview, the festival would already be started. It's from October 6th to November 6th. And then Allison, is there anything you want to share? You want people to know coming up or anything like that? The floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Renee, and to Haunted House Fear Fest. I feel so excited and honored to be a part of the festival. I don't have anything immediate. Like I said, I'm just writing, but you can find me on Instagram. It's my first AOL address. So it's Starbright114. It's Allyson Morgan, Starbright114.
Awesome. And we'll put links below. This will be on our YouTube channel as well and everything else. So thank you so much, guys. Have a good evening. And thank you, Allison. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
You.
Okay. Want more chills and chatter? We're streaming on all podcast platforms.